So 2 weeks ago, I made a video discussing Mark Levin, and the main disagreement that I found was that he refused to view Jews as a group. And I explained why that was false. And now this Scott Adams story comes along, and I've seen something else that needs addressing. So I'll flesh out more of my thinking around this subject in this video. Mr. Reagan has almost 340,000 subscribers on YouTube and is just your standard normie con who said this on Twitter. The problem with Scott Adams' ideas here is that he's defining Black Americans as a monolithic group. This is a leftist mentality. The conservative perspective is to assess each person as an individual, regardless of their group. And then on that post, there was a comment that said this: whatever happened to judging someone based on their character and not their skin color? Well, here's the problem. As with so many of these arguments, they refuse to take this thinking to its logical conclusion. What if you've done that 10,000 times, and every time it's the same people of the same skin color engaging in the same destructive behaviors? What then? What if I've honestly judged people on their character and every time they align with group traits? What then? Oh my God, I've noticed some patterns. I've committed a horrible sin. You know, Martin Luther King's most famous words are the most ignored words of all time if you just look at the actions of Black people since then. They have worked incredibly hard to ensure that we do judge them by the color of their skin because it does define the content of their character. Humans are pattern recognition machines. We profile, we judge, we fill in the blanks using the template of stereotypes to key us in to what's going on, even before we have all of the information in a given situation. Well, why do we do that? Why does our brain force us to do this? Because it's highly effective. This is the problem I have with what Mr. Reagan said. He didn't deny that Scott Adams was wrong. He denies the framing because of its uncomfortable, inevitable conclusion. We shouldn't judge people as a group because racism is imminent. And the Dems are the real racists, or, something like that. He even says that the left thinks like this. Well, I don't know. They run everything. So maybe they're on to something. Let's look at IQ tests for a second. They're largely comprised of pattern recognition questions. They show you 2 or 3 individual pictures and then ask you to identify what the pattern is. Let's use this one as an example. The black part is moving clockwise in a 45-degree motion. And so the answer is the black diamond on the right. But if you were to just look at this square and this square alone, you couldn't come to any conclusion about it. You would handicap yourself from knowing the answer. You'd fail the test. Well, this is what viewing a person as an individual does to you. It's high IQ people convincing you to adopt low IQ forms of critical thinking. Liberalism is deeply tied to individualism, and in our liberal society, as I keep pointing out time and time again because it answers almost every problem, we are required to lie to ourselves and others about the nature of reality. Under this individualistic framework, you would just view every video of a black person beating the out of a white person as a thing unto itself. You would prevent yourself from coming to any dangerous or racist conclusions that might arise. Video after video after video, stat after stat after stat. You could watch a video every day, as many of us do and see on our feeds, of black people committing violence against whites or Asians, and yet nothing would ever come of that. Mr. Reagan doesn't deny that Scott is wrong. He denies the framing because of its inevitable conclusions. You really don't have a choice of what to believe if you view that with your own eyes in that way. And that's why people like Mr. Reagan want you to view people as individuals. The system is ardently anti-noticing, and he's falling right in line with that. That's so pathetic. You'll never come to the right conclusions. You'll never take the right actions. You'll never appear dangerous to the system because we have to be safe and wimpy and never, ever even have the slightest hint of racism on us, because that would be the worst thing ever. To be a racist meanie head in the eyes of the left? Oh my God. We are supposed to care deeply about what they think of us. Think of the ramifications of this line of thinking. This kind of attitude means that you would have to support civil rights and desegregating the schools. But then you'd be absolutely shocked when the schools fall apart because of who you forced into them. This means you'd have no reason not to move into a bad neighborhood because to you, neighborhoods don't exist. You choose to view the house as its own thing. But then you'd be completely blown away when your house gets broken into. It's such bad reasoning and such a bad argument, and it would lead you to flunk an IQ test. And it has led us to where we are now, and why everything's crap. So all of this begs the question, are you willing to be a racist, xenophobic, bigoted anti-Semite who sees the truth of what's going on around you? Or are those labels intimidating enough to keep you away from the truth? You know, there's an enormous amount of effort put in to making sure that this information is as taboo as humanly possible to you. They want this stuff demonized to such an extent you wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And that's why it's so impressive that somebody like Scott Adams came out and said it. Now, he's since publicly apologized for what he said, but for that brief couple minutes, he had a moment of clarity. Will you allow yourself that same clarity? Or will you shrink back into your safe, wimpy place where no one calls you mean things? For me, I'd rather be called a racist than be a dope like Mr. Reagan. Anyways, that's all the time I have for today. If you enjoyed this video and type of content I'm making, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing. If you want to support the channel, I have a Buy Me a Coffee. That's linked down in the description. I will see you all in the next video. Peace.